update on what's happening in the legislature with respect to Sierra Club legislative priorities, especially around climate change. And the session at the legislature for this year ends tonight. So while I've been sitting here, I've been secretly looking at my phone, getting updates on what's happening, and that's some good news. But before I go there, just to give you a little background, I'm a scoutmaster, and so to your point about getting youth outdoors, you know, Sierra Club and Boy Scouts and other organizations, it's true, and you got to do it. And the more you appreciate nature, the more you get out there, the more you're likely to want to preserve it, the more you're going to be concerned about climate change. So I absolutely agree with that. You know, two major reports have come out probably within the last 8 months that really are the ultimate wake-up call to us as a civilization. The first was in October. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change did a special study on what's it going to take to hold global warming to 1.5 degrees C. Okay, now the Paris Climate Agreement, they had a goal of 2 degrees C that they agreed to, but their aspirational goal was 1.5 degrees. And the reason for that is the heat increase from 1 degree to 1.5 is huge, and it's massively impactful. We're seeing it right now, okay? If we end up at 2 degrees C, which was what Paris was really kind of sort of agreeing to, it's probably not good enough, okay? It's probably going to be a lot worse. The second major report that just came out within the last month is the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Environmental Services, the IPBES report. That's just the summary report. The full report is not out yet. But the headline of that report is that 1 million species are at high risk to go extinct if we do not stop not only climate change, but everything else we're doing to push all these species to extinction. And we heard some of those factors raised in Savannah's speech. So I raised that. Now the IPCC report on global warming said we've basically got 12 years to do something. We've got to get off the dime, to your point. We need to move, and we need to move quickly, and we need to move collectively. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I just want to point out 2 books. I read everything on climate change I can get my hands on. The most recent book I've read is The Uninhabitable Earth, Life After Warming by David Wallace Wells. This is a New York Times bestseller. It's the hardest book I've ever read in my life. It tells you that how much worse it can get if you don't act. Now, I'm not too negative of a person. I still believe strongly that we can make a difference. And I would point you to the other New York Times bestseller, Drawdown, which the Drawdown Project, all these scientists got together to come up with, is there a way to achieve the goals of Paris or even 1.5 degrees? And yes, there is. And here are the 100 top ways society can solve these problems. So it's not like we don't know what to do. We know what to do. It's right here, okay? Now, I worked in the Connecticut legislature for 13 years on the public health committee, a long time ago. I was a political science major, and I kind of dabbled in environmental issues when I was in college, and then, you know, raised a family and did a lot of things. I was always a Sierra Club member, but followed more nationally than locally. And I'm a Audubon master naturalist. I'm doing all kinds of things personally on climate change. I've got 2 electric cars. I've got solar panels on my house. I got heat pumps. I'm doing everything I can as a consumer to try to limit my contribution to global warming. And it dawned on me, I can do everything right, and it might not matter. I still need to do that. But it's more about, in my mind, how we do things together, how we get things done. And so I became much more active in the Sierra Club, in the Connecticut chapter. We have a lot of information over here later for you to look at. And so Rick Hazler from from the Greater Hartford Sierra Club is here. We can answer questions. But I got on the legislative committee because of my background in the legislature, trying to help them figure out how to get some things passed. And what I'm going to do is just talk to you briefly about some of those things this session. But I'd just like to read you a very brief poem that I thought really kind of speaks to this issue. It's a poem by Edward Everett Hale, who's a clergyman, and it's called One. I am only one, but I am one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And what I can do, that I ought to do. And what I ought to do, by the grace of God, I will do. So sometimes it seems like we face overwhelming challenges, a journey of daunting length and difficulty. But if each of us does our part individually, and more importantly, we come together to do so collectively, we can move mountains together. This year in the Connecticut legislature, a lot of major legislation is promoted by the Connecticut Sierra Club to address climate change. One of those bills on gas leaks to reduce methane emissions. Currently, there's a law that the Public Utility Regulatory Authority is monitoring how much methane gas leaks from all of our natural gas systems in Connecticut. And the current law basically says that they can't exceed 3% methane. Now, methane is a very potent greenhouse gas, and now there's evidence that methane is raising global temperatures significantly. The growth in methane is very significant, and so we need to do something about that. The bill was intended to cut down the leaks to 1% a year, and it's currently sitting on the Senate calendar. Tonight at midnight is the deadline. We're not sure if it's going to get called. But this year the Sierra Club did sponsor a study in Hartford, Danbury, and New London, following up on an earlier study from 2016, going around measuring methane gas leaks in the streets in the city, looking to see how much gas is out there. And so what they found essentially is that it's persistent and consistent with 2016. The results show that Hartford continues to be problematic with 3.4 leaks per road mile observed in 2016, and same or more estimated in 2019, 4.3 leaks per mile. So we've got work to do on gas leaks, and we have not passed that legislation yet. Connecticut's energy plan calls for conversion of hundreds of thousands of customers to natural gas and building 900 miles of brand new interstate pipelines to connect these converted gas customers. Methane gas, natural gas, is not a clean solution to the climate crisis. So, although it's also causing an environmental destructive process through the method that the gas is extracted with fracking. And Sierra Club members are working to stop the pipelines and change state energy policies to more renewable sources. Another bill this year, the Green New Economy. We talked about the national Green New Economy earlier tonight, and the Green New Deal, and there's a lot of elements to that. There was a lot of hope that the bill that was introduced this year would be something akin to what was being proposed nationally. The Energy Committee issued a bill, favorably reported a bill, that basically was a shell that they were going to work on and get consensus and add a whole bunch to, and it didn't happen. What we did get passed, however, was a fix to our solar net metering law, and the solar net metering law was something that had been repealed last year, but most states that are trying to promote solar installations on homes want so-called net metering in place. I have solar. What that means is during the day when my solar panels are producing a lot of electricity, that electricity goes out onto Eversource's grid, and I get credit for any energy I'm not using from Eversource. Then at night or during the winter when there's snow on my panels, or I'm drawing more power from my electric cars than I'm producing, then I'm drawing more electricity from the grid. At the end of the month, they net what I sold them and what they sold me, and that's net metering. So we did get that fixed, and that's really important because that's going to continue to support our solar industry in the state, which supports a lot of jobs. And there's a lot of homeowners who can now afford to put solar on their roofs because solar, in fact, if your roof angle is oriented appropriately, you can actually afford to put solar on your roof, and it will pay for itself in a reasonable period of time. So that was a big success, and that has passed. Sierra Club is promoting adoption of electric vehicles, both in the state fleet for state cars, as well as to promote and make incentives available to consumers and to businesses so that people can afford to have electric cars, get them charged at work when they commute in, charge them at home, and things like that. Unfortunately, we did not get the electric vehicle bill passed this year. But my experience in working in the legislature over many years is nothing passes usually in the first year. It takes multiple years, you have to be persistent. And this is where all of you and all of us come in together. Because when we exert influence as a collective voice, and a legislative alert comes up and they say, we need you to call your legislator, it makes a difference. Today, we were trying to get the fracking waste bill off the calendar and passed. And the email alert came out this morning, and Andy Gadwa on the legislative committee said, call the speaker, call the majority leader, and let them know we want to get this bill voted on. Guess what? There were so many calls this afternoon that she sent out another email and said, stop, it's going to be counterproductive. We have too many people calling right now. And we got the bill on the calendar. And in fact, the fracking waste bill has now passed. So that shows you that when we work together, collective action makes a difference, okay? Offshore wind, the biggest green bill of the year has passed. It's passed overwhelmingly in the House and Senate. They're going to create, so advocacy by Sierra Club contributed to a new law in Connecticut that 40% of Connecticut's energy be generated by clean and renewable sources by 2030. And in 2018, Connecticut approved the first procurement of offshore wind from Massachusetts, expecting to begin providing electricity in Connecticut in 2023. That was a 200 megawatt project. But the new bill that just passed this week, actually yesterday, 2,000 megawatts of offshore wind power. It's huge for climate change and greening up our electricity generation in Connecticut. The Millstone Power Plant represents over 30% of the electricity that we get in Connecticut. And it's nearing the end of its lifetime. And it's actually, now that it's there, it's actually a fairly green source of electricity relative to natural gas and coal and other carbon-based fuels. But that's going to have to be retired, and we need capacity, renewable capacity to replace it. That's huge. Plastics, a number of bills. So the plastic bag bill ban has passed, and it's gone to the governor. So what does that mean? When you go to your grocery store over the next year, you're going to be paying for plastic or paper bags. And then in 2021, the plastic bags are going away. That is a huge environmental win. So, and then we also were promoting a pipeline tax, the pipeline tax bill to prohibit surcharges from being levied on gas customers to subsidize the cost of interstate natural gas pipeline capacity. The fight over Keystone XL and some of these other pipelines, it's about keeping it in the ground. It's about preventing more extraction of fossil fuels. We did not get that bill passed this year, but we're going to keep working on it going forward. So these are just some of the bills. There's there was a lobby day on Saturday last week, and Sierra Club members and some of the other environmental partners of the Sierra Club came to the Capitol, and we handed out flyers with a list of the current bills that were still pending before the close of the session for senators and representatives. And Sierra Club members got into position in the hallways, and they talked to every legislator that we could get our hands on to advocate for making a difference here at the end of the session. And I'd say that it was a pretty successful day. So when you ask yourself, what can you do to make a difference in climate change, is become involved and learn how to help with these types of things. And you don't have to be there in person, you can call. And the other thing is now the technology is so good and so convenient that when they send out an alert, and I get an alert on Twitter or Facebook or email, and it says, contact your representatives about this bill, and you say, click the link, and you say yes, it immediately gives you the names of your representative and your senator. It gives you the text of a pre-formatted email saying why you support it. It gives you the opportunity to type a sentence or two, especially if you know them, and you can kind of personalize it, and then you fire that off. And the more of those emails that go into those legislators' offices, you might think it doesn't make a difference. It's a huge difference. And this is how we're building the momentum we need to change the trajectory of climate change in America. The last thing I'll say just about what you can do at a personal level, collective action. I think, obviously you want to be smarter consumers. We talked about sourcing food locally, eating less meat, where's your food shipped from, buying sustainable seafood and organic produce. You all can switch your home electric supplier. Eversource will let you switch to 100% renewable. And if you get a 2-year contract right now, it's the same cost as the Eversource rate. Most people are happy just to take whatever the rate is that Eversource gives them and not think about it. You can switch your electric supplier right now to 100% renewable without having to put solar on your roof. Do it. So I encourage you to do that. The other thing is get a home energy audit if you haven't done it. The amount of heat that's flowing up out of your house, you are just throwing money away if you will not have your home energy audit. When I first got that 69 Colonial, the amount of heat that went out of that house was crazy. I put a blanket of insulation in there the first year I was in there, and the $500 I invested in that insulation was paid off in 2 years. And I've been being paid back every year since. So strongly encourage it. We talked about taking the bus. You haven't had a good experience, but I've been commuting on the bus to Hartford from South Windsor for the last 7 years. And commuter buses are fantastic. They go down the high occupancy vehicle lanes, you're not caught in traffic jams, you get into work, you can read on the bus, you can do your email. It's less expensive than driving in the car, but it's far more convenient. Strongly encourage you to do it. Electrify everything you own if you can. Put solar on your roof, right? I have 2 electric cars, and I drive now, my wife drives almost exclusively on electric. And it's so convenient, but I don't have time to talk about electric cars. I can spend all night on that. But get active in your community. Suffield and the churches, it seems like you have a passion and an opportunity to do some great things together. And in your town, and a lot of towns in Connecticut have a green energy task force that are working on ways to make the towns more sustainable and try to get to 100% renewable. Sierra Club has a Ready for 100 campaign, and Newington got on the map as being ready for 100. I think they probably got credit for announcing it, but we need to see the action behind it. But what I will tell you is there's a group of coordinators around the state from each town that's doing a green task force, and you can get together with them and don't reinvent the wheel. There's so much good models out there that you can follow. Putting up LED lights on your streets and changing your recycling systems and on and on. So please do that. And then giving financial support to environmental organizations. Sierra Club, National Resources Defense Council, Environmental Defense Fund. They are litigating the Trump administration And most of the damage that could have been done by this administration has been hamstrung by environmental groups with a lot of contributions to their legal defense funds, and they've been successful over and over and over again. Probably 100 times they've stopped really bad decisions for the Environmental Protection Agency and some of the other agencies in this country. So please keep doing that. And all I can say is, let's do this together. Let's get energized and let's get behind the things we know we can do. The blueprint is here. The blueprint is over there on the Sierra Club activities and things that they're focused on. And I think we can all make a difference together. Thank you.
How many of you when you go to the grocery store, take bags, usable bags? How many of you, when you go to the produce section, and you say, I'm going to get 5 lemons. Uh-oh, I need a plastic bag to put these in. Anybody know what these are? Reusable produce bags. I got about 12 of them. And the lucky people who want one of these can have one. You can also get them on Amazon. You know, it is really true that we need to act collectively. These are global issues, but individual actions matter. When I take these things to the grocery store and people look at it and they say, wow, almost everybody asks, where did you get these things? These things matter. These things matter. By the way, I'm Tom Carr, and I'm the pastor here at Second Baptist Church, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Interreligious Eco-Justice Network in Connecticut.
That's us. We're a faith-based environmental nonprofit. We work with religious communities on an interfaith basis on environmental issues. So we deal with everything like energy efficiency in houses of worship, to helping congregations get solar, to climate change, advocating for environmental legislation. We were very involved. It's very exciting. The last few days have been pretty exciting at the state legislature.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And one of the things is usually when I get up there and people say, oh, here comes the God talk. Here's the God talk. But when the previous two speakers were talking about getting outside, and it reminded me of the saying that I think Jacques Cousteau said, you save what you love. You can't save what you don't know. You save what you love. And as a Christian, the first Bible passages that I memorized at the First Baptist Church of Royal Oak, Michigan, when I was about 4 years old or 5 years, whenever I started reading, was God so loved the world that he gave his only son, so on and so forth. And I always thought, well, God loves the people of the world, which is true. But you know what that actually in the Greek says? God so loves the cosmos. Everything. Everything. And so the question about a story and having a narrative is really significant, I think, for religious communities. I want to quote Gus Speth. I don't know if anybody knows. Was a former chair of the President's Council on Environmental Quality, former dean of the Yale School of Forestry, dean of Vermont Law School, said this: I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation, and we scientists don't know how to do that. That's why it is absolutely essential for religious communities to be engaged in this work. And we have a new normal, but so many of us in religious communities are acting like it's normal. And I know I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor of different churches for almost 35 years. And congregations don't like to change.
They don't, and they tend to be kind of nervous. They don't want to offend the person sitting next to them in the pew if they think they have a different belief system, and I get that. I go to First Baptist Church of West Hartford. We've got some folks in there, but I always Earth ministry is a direct reflection of all of the other ministries that religious folks are already doing. You know, it is directly related to war and conflict. It's directly related to disaster relief. I mean, if you go to any faith community after a hurricane or a tornado or a wildfire, they will pass the plate around a second time to collect money for those victims. You know, and Deacon Art Miller, who's on our board, said that working on, he would use the analogy, working on hunger and war and conflict, all these things, without addressing environmental is like going to the bottom of a river and finding people that are very injured and building a hospital to help those people that are injured at the bottom of the river without ever going up the river, find out what's going on up there, why these people are, you know, washing down the river injured. And that's what we need to do. We need to go up the river. And I truly believe, I mean, I agree so much with Tom Carr and what some of the other speakers have spoken about, in that one of the things that's missing from our society today is connection. It's connection with each other. It's connection with nature. I firmly believe we have to get people outside and connected with each other. And I feel like one of the reasons I've always liked faith-based environmentalism, like I got into this years ago, back when I was the young people, that now I think, these young people are so inspiring. I was once those people. And I felt like this is a way for me to live out my faith in so many little ways during the day. You know, I'm living out my faith when I'm composting and taking the bus and recycling and, you know, all these different small choices. It's sort of a conscious reflection of my faith. And I'll tell you too, when you work for a faith-based environmental group or any faith-based group, people connect with you in a new way. A few years ago, we were in a meeting with Commissioner Robert Cleek, and he's the head of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and it was with Connecticut Roundtable on Climate and Jobs, and it was really one of the beginning discussions over what are we going to do about climate change and that sort of thing. And Commissioner Cleek, we went around the table and we all introduced ourselves, who we were, and what group we were with. And it got to me, and I said that I was, you know, with this interreligious group, and he paused, and he immediately started telling me about the new rabbi in his synagogue. And so we kind of got a little off track, but it was funny because just the connection of being two faith-based people, and it was like the mood in the room sort of shifted a little bit because we were off from sort of policy discussion to a much more personal connection where we kind of everyone was now recognizing everyone else's humanity on a different way. You know, John Humphreys is a Quaker, and you know, and it was interesting because that is the sort of thing that people, it almost, when you come, especially when you come from an interfaith perspective where you're all automatically sort of interested in learning about other people from different perspectives, it makes walls drop in a way, and I think it's so important for the religious community to engage. We are either in this world fighting over resources or fighting from religious perspective. You know, those are two of the biggest, and they're often completely connected, you know. And so we need to, if we're going to have a conversation about environment, it needs to include religion. And
because this is a moral, ethical, and spiritual issue at heart. I've been engaged in this stuff since 1986 when the garbage barge. Anybody remember the garbage barge floating up and down the East Coast, not finding a way? That was my epiphany when I was in Dayton, Ohio, and saw that on the NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. If you remember that, it just stopped me in my tracks. But this is a moral, ethical, and spiritual issue. You know, as a person of faith, the earth is the Lord's. Life is a gift. All those incredible pictures in Antarctica and all these other things and being outside. This is such an incredible gift. And human beings are also an incredible gift. It's a matter of justice as well. Eco-justice is the phrase American Baptists coined in about 1969 of ecology and human justice are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. It's both and. They're not separate issues. It is both and. So it is absolutely critical that we, that we engage in this from a moral and ethical perspective, and that's the story. And I think Terry just wants to tell just a couple things that Jane is going to do.
I'll be so quick. And one of the things too is when you contact your legislator and tell them that you are of a specific faith tradition, that has an impact. They're not necessarily used to people being quite so personal in that way. And you just share that with them authentically as a reason for caring about this. And it doesn't have to be the only reason, but it is a good one. So we started this past year. I mean, I noticed people were so motivated, so ready, energized to do something, but also overwhelmed, exhausted, upset. And I thought, okay, how do we get this energy and willingness to activate without overwhelming everyone? And so we started something called the Green Forum Series, which were 90-minute seminars, so similar to this, on specific topics, and we bring in panelists and whatnot. And we focused on different topics, like we did one on offshore wind, plastic pollution. We did a couple on state legislation and covered a wide range of different bills that were being proposed. And so they were smaller, they were shorter events of 90 minutes, and very focused on specific issues. And we just did divestment, as someone mentioned. And the idea was that people were going to get enough knowledge that they feel like they will be aware of the issue, they leave with information, and then I would say to them, I will be adding your email to my email list, and I will be emailing you with action items. And when I email you to call so-and-so, your representative or Senate president, I want you to do it. I don't want you to skip over this email. I want you to actually do it, because it is important that we take action now. We have to do something. And it was amazing because people did. And that's why, I was thrilled with the plastic bag ban that got into the state budget, and the offshore wind and fracking waste. Those are three bills that, everyone has been working really, really hard. And I think, having these forums, at least for our people, were very helpful in getting them activated and understanding the issues. And so we're planning out next this summer will be more about outdoor activities. And then we'll keep doing more green forums next year. I would love to come back to Suffield and do something. And we have a whole range of topics. I mean, we did, like I said, plastic pollution. We did environmental racism 3 times all over the state. It's important, and I really connect with the fact that the Zero Movement talks about those different issues. They are all connected, and we have to talk about them all sort of together.
And let's remember too that this is a matter of generational justice. It's no coincidence that Joe is really the inspiration behind this, because it is the responsibility of every human generation to pass on a habitable planet to the next generation. It is our responsibility. And sometimes, and I wrote in my notes, but I'm not even going to look at them, but sometimes I think us old people